Monday, January 14th. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, we talk a bit about virtualization.
Let's do this.
Well, I survived skiing.
You and a whole bunch of other people.
Yeah, barely though.
But not everybody.
Not everybody indeed.
I'm sure there were some skiing accidents in the recent times.
However, not so many where we were, but it was kind of funny because I haven't skied in over a decade, and Scott, the other Scott, the more adventurous Scott, with whom I went skiing, was he hadn't skied in a long time either. It was like 8 years for him. So the whole time, usually you think I'm the one who's kind of rash. I'm the one who's like, screw it, let's just go. But this time I was like, maybe we should go a little easy on this. Maybe we should. I don't know if I can still ski. And he's like, nah, it's like riding a bike. You never forget. You'll know how to ski. You'll start going down the mountain and you'll be fine. So we get there. I rent my little skis. And the first thing I notice is that skis don't look like they looked the last time I skied anymore. They look a lot different.
All right. Are they just flat sticks?
Well, the thing is,
with, pointy bit that's curved at the end and then straight in the back?
I rented skis and, I got
Why do they have a curved pointy bit in the front?
Well, actually, they didn't. Now they don't anymore. Now they have a wide kind of like bloop at the front.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, I used to have slightly longer skis with a sharp point at the end. And now they gave me shorter skis and there was a blobby bit at the end, which apparently makes it like 10 times easier to turn and control the thing. And it doesn't impact your speed at all. So it's just like technology got better.
So why didn't they make it that way originally?
I don't know. Maybe they didn't think to.
Okay.
I don't know. But so I'm standing in my skis. And I'm like, all right. And I move myself around. I'm like, all right, I think I remember how this goes. And I'm like, oh yeah, I can do the snow plow and I can do the parallel, whatever. And let's go. So he's like Black Diamond and I'm like Bunny Hill. So we go to the Bunny Hill, the little green, and we go down it and we look at each other. We're like, wow, that was a lot easier than I thought. Yeah, I could turn. Holy crap. And we didn't fall over. Let's go to the normal hills. And we did a few of the normal hills and every time we did fine. I could turn. I got going a little fast. I'm like, maybe I should slow down. And then I slowed down and I didn't fall over. So we're standing there at the bottom of like our third intermediate hill. And Scott Johnson says to me, you know what? Either we're really overconfident and we're missing something, or we got a lot better at skiing than we were 8 to 10 years ago.
Or maybe that particular skiing place was like easy.
Well, the thing is,
like, it was like the Wuss Mountain in general.
There is definitely some truth to the fact that with a lot of things that are physical skills, if you do them you do them a lot and then you stop doing them for a while and then you do them again, a lot of times you almost get better after you have that interval because you kind of forget all the bad habits, but you still have the muscle memory for some of the good habits. And it's like you get to start all over. You get born again in skiing.
Sometimes.
And that seemed to be the case. So we're like, all right, let's go over to the East Mountain and hit those Black Diamonds. And get up, we go down, and hey, this isn't so bad. And then I stop, and he's behind me, and he's like, why'd you stop? We get up there, and there's basically a cliff. And there's no way except to go down this cliff now. We're looking at it, and we're like, well, what do we do? And I say, fuck it, I just go down.
Well, you didn't have much of a choice. I mean, you can't go back up, right?
Well, what the protocol is, if you suck and you go somewhere you can't make it down, you're supposed to just sidestep your way down the stupid mountain for like an hour.
Okay, but what if you can't even do that? What if you're stuck on the mountain?
Well, then you take your skis off and you walk down.
Oh, is it? So I thought, but if it's a cliff, you can't really walk.
Well, if you walk laterally, eventually you'll find a place you can walk down.
Okay.
Or with those, you can usually walk back up, or you just wait for ski patrol to find you.
Okay, let's say the ski patrol finds you, then what do they do?
They'll probably put you on a stretcher and then pull you up the mountain or down the mountain or snowmobile or something laterally, or there's a lot of things they can do.
All right.
But anyway.
I guess the mountain I'm imagining is like, there's nowhere to go.
So I'm going down, and I'm thinking, all right, this is the moment of truth, because there's a turn coming up. And I wasn't sure up until this point if all I'd been turning a lot and slowing down and speeding up, and I couldn't really prove to myself if that was accidental. I couldn't really figure out if I was going where I expected to be going, or if it was just kind of luck that I wasn't running into anything. And now there's basically a 90-degree turn at the end of this cliff. And my body just turned, and everything worked. So I think I can ski again.
Yeah,
So
a lot of people can ski, so.
Fast forward about, 15 minutes, And we've done every black diamond except one. And the one we haven't done has a big warning on it. Warning, ungroomed moguls. Now, mogul is just a stupid skiing word that means a big bump.
Yeah, I think people know what they are.
I think a lot of people don't know.
How could you not know?
If you live in the South and you've never been skiing, never seen snow,
But then they don't need to know.
well, now you do. That's why if I say mogul and someone's never heard of that term, they're going to think, what a mogul?
If someone lives somewhere where there's no snow, then they already stopped listening.
Probably not, because skiing's interesting, especially when you see people epically fail at it.
Go on YouTube, search for skiing accident. Funny stuff.
The funniest thing, I think we watched this one video where this guy, he survived, so it wasn't bad, but he's doing this, like, basically, it's this gigantic cliff, and the camera zooms so far out that it's like, wow, I can't believe he's doing it. Then we're watching, I'm like, wait a minute. There's no way to know he's skiing. For all we know, he's just rolling down this hill. He's already dead or something. And then as he gets closer and zoomed in, sure enough, he hasn't been skiing for some time. He's just going head over heels down this mountain.
Yeah, it was kind of, I was afraid it was a snuff film, but it wasn't.
But then at the end, he just gets up and he has this, you see him going like, oh shit, but he's fine.
Well, he wasn't fine, but he was
lived.
conscious.
He lived.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to make a long story short, Scott Johnson and I are standing there at the top of this basically 90-foot or so cliff covered in moguls. And he's basically trying to egg me into going down it. And I keep saying, well, all right, you go first, and because you're the more experienced skier. And he's like, yeah, all right. But he wouldn't move. And then he's like, yeah, you'll be fine. You'll make it. And eventually I'm like, yeah, I will make it. I will. Let's do this. And I jump down, and I barely come to a stop on this first mogul. And I'm maybe 10 feet down from the point of no return. And I'm facing left, and I'm on this mogul. And I'm thinking, all right, there's a mogul about 10 feet down from me. As long as I'm facing in the opposite direction, by the time I get to that mogul, I can do the rest of this. I'm going to be okay. So I try to jump, do a little pivot turn, and I only made it about halfway. So now I'm facing directly at the mogul. Then I hit the mogul. Then I'm in the air. Then I land on the next mogul some distance down on my stomach, which bounces me back up into the air. Then I land on my head and flip head over heels like 3 times. And then I kind of roll to a stop.
So why were these ungroomed? Why didn't they groom them?
Because that's where the awesome skiers go to have awesome times, or where people like me go to hurt myself.
Because, I mean, on the Olympics, they have the moguls, but they're all groomed. It's like these nice, even bumps. Like they're all, and the people go boink, 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 boink,
Well,
boink.
I mean, I saw people doing that with these moguls. I just am not that good at skiing. But, and the funniest thing was, before we went down, there was a crowd of like 10 other people standing there, like along with us. And everyone's like, you gonna do it, man? Oh, I don't know. Well, I saw someone else do it.
Well, wait a second. If you went up to the top of this thing, right? There was no option but to do it.
Oh, no, I could go laterally, and then there's another great, completely smooth slope that I already done twice.
Okay, but what if you didn't want to do either one of those?
Well, then I was fucked, and I was stupid.
Okay, see, that's how I was checking. It's sort of like when you go on the water slide, right? There's like, you can go up the stairs that go halfway up, or the stairs that go all the way up. And if you go all the way up the stairs, you can't go down the stairs, and there's only like maybe 3 slides up there. And it's like, well, you can't go down one of the slides that's halfway. You have to take one of these 3 slides. You don't have a choice.
See, that's the way skiing has this rating system. But the rating system is basically, how good do you have to be to guarantee that you will not hurt yourself severely? Mm-hmm. And it's like the bunny hill, the green circle, and then it's the blue square, which is pretty much everything. It's like, if you are able to ski, you will not hurt yourself on a blue square. Mm-hmm. And then there's black diamond, which is, unless you are confident in your abilities and a proficient skier, then black diamond, there's a good chance that you will break something. Uh-huh. Something you don't want to break.
Alrighty.
So, and then there's double black diamond, which is basically, I regard a short thrill more so than my own life.
Okay.
I don't think I'll ever ski down a black diamond. I have no interest in that whatsoever.
All right.
I think those moguls were the worst I'll ever do. But the funniest thing was, not only was this crowd of people kind of egging each other on, and Scott Johnson included egging me on.
Why are they egging each other on? People want each other to get hurt?
Well, the funniest thing was, Ski Patrol is standing there. And I note that they did not stop me or anyone else from hurting themselves here. And in fact, they were standing there smiling, and I'm sure they were just waiting for us to go down.
Do they want to see someone get hurt? I guess it makes their day interesting.
And she skis over. She's like, you okay? And I'm like, yeah, can you go get my skis?
Wait, how did they ski over? Were they just at the top with everyone else?
Yeah, they're just awesome skiers. They just skied right down to me.
Oh, but they can't go back up, though. Once they start going down, they got to go all the way down.
Well,
right?
They went halfway down. They grabbed my skis, and then they went the rest of the way down.
Oh, and then you sort of rolled down?
Actually, I was still on the moguls, like on the cliff when they gave me my stuff back. So I spent a while. It was really hard to put that ski back on without falling. And then I get it on, and I'm thinking, fuck it, and I just jump, and I do the same thing I did before, but this time it worked. And I made it down. And I didn't see what happened to Scott Johnson, but from what he tells me, his ski fell off while he was turning, and he had a similar fate.
All right.
But he didn't hurt his neck like I did.
Okay, well, you need to get a new neck.
I don't think I broke my neck, so I think I'm okay.
Your neck's no good anyway.
My neck's fine.
No, it's not. It's a crap neck.
I got a good neck. I got a nice long neck.
No, you get a better neck out of a turkey at the supermarket.
What? You could have at least said like giraffe or something.
No, giraffe.
They got the kings of necks right there.
Giraffe necks are no good. You actually have a slow reaction time because it takes so long for the signal from your brain to get to your body.
Well, I could just have 2 brains.
You have 2 brains. You need a third brain.
All right. So
last night I got like the worst sleep I got in forever. Cause
sorry about that. Should have locked your door.
At around I went to bed like 10, 11-ish, something like that, right?
Yeah, I went to bed at like 9 after taking a whole bunch of aspirin because my neck still hurts.
And then freaking, all of a sudden I wake up and and I'm like, what the fuck? And
I love that feeling where your brain hasn't woken up enough yet to figure out what the hell's going on.
Not only was I startled and awoken, right, and such, right, but I realized that it was the UPSs, stupid UPSs.
Now, I find it funny that both UPSs in your room went off, but the one in my room was just fine.
I don't know what the fuck is going on with them. I have to look it up and see what exactly that particular beep means, but anyway.
You know what? That's the cheap UPS. That beep means something happened. Ah, shit. That's it.
Pretty much.
That UPS beeps no matter what.
So I just turned them off. I didn't care. I just pushed the buttons on them to shut them up as quickly as possible.
That's what I did the last time that happened to me.
Yeah, who cares if the computer just turns off? I don't give a shit.
The thing is, the last time that happened to me when the power actually went out, I remember laying there and I hit my alarm clock until I thought I broke it and the sound didn't stop. Then I grabbed my cell phone. I'm just like squeezing it, trying to hit buttons on it and nothing. So I'm grabbing my BlackBerry and I'm like throwing it around like, why won't it stop? I'm like, oh, wait. And I go over to the UPS and that was it.
Yep. But yeah, basically I turned them both off. Then my clock was off and I'm just like, fuck. So I go and I take my cell phone. I'm like, I'll set the cell phone alarm, right?
That's why I always use the cell phone alarm.
So I set the cell phone alarm to 6 a.m., but the cell phone only said 1 a.m. I was like, fuck. I imagine it would be like 4, it's 3 or something, 4 in the morning. But
see, I actually had one of those really, those nights where you sleep and you feel like you slept forever. And then you wake up and you've only been asleep for like an hour. And then you go back to sleep and the same thing just keeps happening over and over again. I had like the best night's sleep I've had ever last night.
I had the worst. But then it was, not only was I just awoken rudely, it wasn't just a rude awakening. It was also like I was awoken while my body was like digesting something. So my stomach was like all uncomfortable. And I felt like complete shit. But I went back to bed, right? But then a few hours later, I never got fully awoken again, but I never actually got fully to sleep for an extended period of time because all sorts of plows and other things outside kept intermittently.
Oh yeah, because of that blizzard.
Yeah, it wasn't a blizzard. It was just
it was supposed to be a blizzard.
Yeah, it was supposed to be.
Nothing.
It was just being a bit of snow, like not even an inch, and it was just it melted in the mornings. It was just wet. It was just mush. But
when I got up, it was actually still snow everywhere.
Yeah, all these plows and things kept fucking intermittently waking me up partially, and it's terrible.
So,
and then in the morning, right? I wanted to I had to update my iPod, whatever. So I wanted to VNC to the downstairs, whatever. So I get my laptop and I turn it on, but I can't get DHCP because the server's off.
Oh, probably because you turned the UPS off.
So I was trying to turn back on the the DHCP on the server, on the router. So I'd have to turn the server back on.
You could set up an alternate network profile where if you don't have a lease and whatever, it'll just take an IP address, just reserve one so that no one else gets it with DHCP or out of the scope.
I know.
And then set it up with, 129.21.21.1, my favorite DNS server in the world.
No.
I still use that thing.
But then I was gonna, basically what I did is I just took the server, I turned the UPS, I unplugged the server, I turned the UPS on, it didn't beep. I plugged the server into the non-battery powered port, and then I turned the laptop on and I went. Yeah, it was not good. Hopefully tonight will be better. and I got to do some UPS research to solve this fucking problem. I never want to be awoken rudely by my computer not turning off. I mean, it should only beep if there's trouble.
Well, the thing is, we bought the cheapest. They don't have any sort of intelligent communication at all. They have two modes, working and beep, 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 beep.
I just wish they wouldn't go beep, 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 beep. Just fucking, if you're not working, just fucking, drain your battery and then shut up.
Well, you could just buy a better UPS.
I think that's what's going to happen. It's what's got to happen.
So, speaking of UPSs, according to Slashdot, Ford claims ownership of your pictures.
There's nothing to do with UPS.
That's
or the other UPS.
That's my classic non sequitur sequitur.
It's not good.
You don't like it?
No.
Fine, you try to
No,
segue.
sir, I don't like it.
You try to segue from UPSs into Ford.
How about here, I have some news that's unrelated. Let me read it to you.
It's barely even tech news, but it's copyright, and I feel like that seems to fall under Monday.
Well, I think it's intellectual property and technology really are two separate topics, law and technology. But the thing is that geeks are really only interested in law unless they're law geeks when it relates to technology. And it seems to relate to technology quite a bit. In fact, it seems to relate to all geekeries, and specifically the intellectual property law seems to relate to all geekeries, because all geekeries are all about creating and using intellectual property in some way.
There might have been a momentary interruption there. I'm not even going to try to cover it over because I don't really care. But speaking of, we were talking about UPSs and power going out. I was fiddling with my computer for various reasons, and I'd rebooted and I'd changed my grub and everything, and I'd forgot to disable APIC and LAPIC, which on my motherboard with the current Linux kernels is a trouble.
I thought you, aren't you like Gutsy? Shouldn't that fix that problem? Or
no, Gutsy doesn't fix that for shit.
No, they shouldn't. That gets kind of screwed up.
Yeah, it is, but I look on the internet and everyone has this problem with this motherboard and with similar motherboards, so...
that's the kind of shit needs fixing.
Thing is, APIC has always been finicky with Linux.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell that problem is, because I never had a problem with it on my computer.
I think it depends on just what chipsets and whatever, but anyway, so my computer crashed, but luckily, because we're all cool here, I mean, I got my UPS and everything, but I also have the Marantz plugged into the UPS, recording to flash all the time with the fancy mixer that lets me do this trivially, so I got to back up no matter what.
Oh, backups. So before this part of the show, it was all backup.
Yep, so also, I'll find out now if I've set that up right to sound good, but it should sound the same as the normal show, so let me know if it sounded different.
All right, anyway,
the gist of this story is that some group of like auto enthusiasts own some Ford cars that they fancify up. And because they're a little club, they wanted to make a poster or a calendar.
Yep.
And every month has pictures of the cars they own with all the fancy things they've done to them.
Yep.
They were going to sell it among themselves as a little fundraiser.
On Cafe Press or whatever.
And then Ford Motor Company stepped in and said, we own the trademark to Ford cars. Fuck you. If you do that, we'll sue you.
Well, that's not exactly what it was.
What they exactly did was trademark infringement. That cannot be done through Cafe Press, whatever.
Exactly. Cafe Press was like, and then Ford was like, Cafe Press, don't do that.
Yeah, effectively, what Ford has said is that even if you own a Ford car, you cannot in any way use other than, non-trademark infringing ways, though I'm dubious as to how much of a trademark infringement this is, but I'll get to that.
Yeah, I mean, what if I take a picture of my car and put it on Flickr with a Creative Commons license? Is that wrong?
Yeah, or what if I want to make a t-shirt for myself of my car? What if I want to make a t-shirt to sell to my friends of my car that I added spinners to?
Yeah.
See, now, what really bothers me is that, in my mind, trademarks exist for two reasons. Because remember, copyright and trademark and all these things didn't just always exist. They were created in the legal structure of the United States for specific purposes. And with trademark, I'm of the mind that it serves two purposes, or at least should serve two purposes. That one, it protects corporations that have a good standing in the marketplace because of their name. Say I'm Joey Jojo's Shabadoo Shoes. Well, trademark prevents someone else from making Joey Jojo Shabadoo Shoes because, you see, I'm Joey Jojo, and I run Joey Jojo Shabadoo Shoes. Now, if someone else wanted to make Joey Jojo Shabadoo computers, there's nothing wrong with that, because there's no way in the world an intelligent person would mistake Joey Jojo Shabadoo computers for Joey Jojo Shabadoo shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there have been complications to these ideas in the past, like the fact that the only reason Apple Computers was able to exist under that name, despite the fact that there was also the Apple Music label, was because Apple Computers agreed that it would only be computers and stuff and never music. And then iTunes and all that came, and the iPod, and there was trickiness, and that all worked out, luckily. But
Well, kind of.
it worked out as best as it could have, as far as we care.
Yeah.
But and the only other purpose I see the trademark has is that it protects consumers who can use the names of companies to have a kind of to know how good or bad a company is, to see the company's track record, to be discerning consumers. If I know that Joey Jojo Shabadoo pizza tastes like ass, then I know not to buy Joey Jojo Shabadoo.
Yeah, imagine if, people, I mean, we look at brands, right? And brands for marketing people are awesome. They love brands because they can just market the brand itself. They can get you to love the brand. And then it doesn't matter what the actual thing is because you love the brand. And that's what marketing people love to do. But on the same token, if we got rid of brands altogether, you'd be fucked. You go to the store, there'd be all these things with all these different labels on them, or maybe no labels on them.
There'd be 8 different Domino sugars, and you don't know which one's the real Domino sugar that you trust, and which one is Joey Jojo Shabadoo's found it in a truck that crashed somewhere.
Exactly. So
First you get the sugar.
It's like, how would you while brands are used to market to you and to get you to do things, they also protect you in a way because you can trust something. Like, what if there were all these iPods at the store and one of them was the real Apple iPod made by Apple,
Or like
quality,
the
and the other ones were God knows what Apple iPods.
I think a good reference here is the V.
Yeah, the V.
But I'm of the mind that no intelligent person would mistake a small auto enthusiast club that fancify up their Ford cars for the Ford Motor Company that makes cars, especially since it's not like this little motor club is selling their Ford cars as Ford cars.
Yeah, they took pictures of cars
that they own and they modified.
Right, and they made a calendar out of pictures that they took, and the pictures, they own the legal right to those pictures. They took them, right? And they want to make a calendar out of pictures they took. They're not competing with the Ford Motor Company. What they're doing doesn't harm the trademark of the Ford Motor Company in any way. It's not, damaging. It won't give people, this calendar will not change people's minds to make them think the Ford Motor Company is bad in any way. It's really just bullshit, and I don't think trademark should apply at all.
So, I don't know what the actual legal full result of this will be, but I feel that the moral imperative is on the side of the small auto enthusiast club and not the Ford Motor Company. And I'd say I'll boycott Ford, but I've never owned a Ford, and I probably never will.
I guess a Mazda is a Ford.
Yeah, but if you want to get into the semantics about who actually makes cars, then that's a whole other show.
It sure is. Like, all right.
Granted, I've driven nothing but like Pontiacs, so.
Well, it's the same as a Chevy.
Yep.
And whatever. Anyway. So a lot of things happened at the CES, and we could talk about a whole bunch of them. Probably over the next few weeks, we'll probably whittle through them as...
Oh, next week, I'm going to talk about nothing but laptops. Let me tell you what.
Okay, but anyway. And, the Mac World, the big Steve Jobs is tomorrow.
Oh, man. I might watch it live just because if they announce...
You don't watch it live. That's stupid. Just go to Engadget, right?
No,
Engadget does the live blog.
Because when I was at IBM, the way I quote-unquote watched it live was I went to IRC...
No,
and there's a guy.
bad. Just go to Engadget and there's a live blog. And they're doing the live blog this time where the newest parts are at the top.
Really?
Yes, because there was a vote today on Engadget because they usually put the newest stuff at the bottom.
Which is not what I wanted.
See, it's a reload, scroll. But the reason they do it that way is that when all is said and done, someone who comes to the site after the event is over can read it straight through. And what they're going to do is while the event is going on, they're going to do it with the newest stuff at the top.
All right, that's my solution now.
And then you just reload the page as it goes on. And then as soon as it's over, they're going to flip the whole thing upside down.
Because if Apple announces a laptop that is cool enough for me, it's pretty much if they announce a cool laptop, I'm buying it.
Well, I don't know. You got to come down to the store, check it out. You can't be too sure about this.
Well, no, as in when I say I'm buying it, I mean unless a factor appears to dissuade me, I will buy it. Now, a factor might appear like it's $8,000, or I go to the store and every one I try breaks and smells like cheese.
I think it definitely depends on a great many factors whether it would be worth buying or not.
Yeah, but at the same time, if I'm dissuaded, then I already know what laptop I'm going to buy. And if I'm dissuaded from that, I've got like 9 other choices because it's laptop season, baby.
It sure is. All right. But anyway, a lot of things happened there. Some of them were more interesting than others. But it wasn't like super huge. It wasn't super great. But regardless, one thing that I thought was particularly interesting, right? Let me tell you this story. In the world of people who care about gadgets and whatnot, there are basically 2 blogs. There's Gizmodo and Engadget, right?
Now, one of these 2 might be better.
Well, okay, what happened originally, there was just Gizmodo. It was the one, right? I guess there are other gadget blogs, but Gizmodo was the big one, started by Mr. Peter Rojas. Anyway, he's a cool guy.
Rockjaw?
No, Peter Rojas.
Ro.
No. So, he started Gizmodo. And it was, I don't know if it was part of Gawker Media from the beginning. It doesn't matter, but it's part of Gawker Media now. And that's a company that owns Kotaku and Joystick, I think. No, not Joystick. Engadget and Joystick are together. What? No, they own Kotaku and Jalopnik. That's the one. And a whole bunch, and Gawker.
Anyway.
And they own a bunch of blogs. They're all together, right? And then there's Engadget, which is part of Weblogs Inc., right? Basically, Peter Rojas left Gizmodo because Weblogs Inc. hired him, which is AOL, which is Time Warner, which is right. So Engadget is owned by AOL, and so is Joystick and whatever. So Peter Rojas now works for the Engadget, even though he started the Gizmodo. And the Gizmodo is still owned by Gawker, which is the same people as Kotaku, and it's separate.
This is not what you care about.
No. And for a while, they've been sort of the competing gadget blogs. You know?
Competing. I have many analogies as to what kind of competition it is or who might be winning.
Well, for a while, it was pretty much, they were almost exactly the same site. You would see the same stories on both sites with slightly different writing, similar pictures. It wasn't really, one wasn't better than the other. It was just, there's 2 sites, and if you read both of them, you can't possibly miss any gadget news. It won't happen, right? Engadget has some spin-offs like Engadget HD or Engadget Mobile, but those don't matter. Anyway, it all started to go downhill for Gizmodo quite recently. Basically, there was an incident where Kotaku, remember, owned by the same people as Gizmodo. Gizmodo, basically, I don't know, they must have had access to Kotaku somehow because they're both the same company, and they put the horrible tub girl picture on Kotaku.
Now, had they put a pirate flag or a fake story or a picture of the laughing man or just change the logo to their logo, that would have been awesome. Tub girl, like, you know, there's a line, like, having a bucket of water over a door is a good prank. Having a bucket of tire irons, that really kind of goes beyond prank and into criminal assault.
Pretty much. And this is the same company here, you know, and it's like, what the hell are they doing? And Kotaku, you know, Kotaku's owned by the same company, but the editors and writers over there, they're professionals. They're like, what the fuck, Gizmodo? That was fucking stupid. You know, what the fuck is wrong with you? It's like this misbehaving child, and they had to give it a spanking, you know? It's like if your sibling is all misbehaving. You're like, what the fuck? You know? So anyway, that was the start of Gizmodo's downhill, and that was around that point. I cut them out of my blog or Google Reader there. Gizmodo, now, goodbye.
I would wager that Gizmodo really, really wants to kind of have this image of we're the edgy ones. We're the people who do the bad things. We're the bad boys of gadget news. Because they pulled this shit again.
I don't know. Yeah, basically at CES, right, they got a TV Be Gone. And a TV Be Gone, if you don't know, is this little thing. And it's, you push a button on it, and it has in it programmed, the power button infrared codes for basically every television.
And it's kind of cycles through them in order of, like, which ones are most popular out there to try to turn off every TV in the vicinity.
Right, so you just point it at some TVs, push the button and wait, and it eventually, in like a minute or two, will probably turn those TVs off if, their infrared receivers aren't blocked. So they went around CES and turned TVs off while people were giving presentations on those TVs. Now, I mean, for an attendee of CES, this could be like a funny joke if you're just some punk kids. But I mean, they're press. They had press badges. They're professionals going around turning off TVs at people's presentations like, hee.
Now, the thing is, if they had done it just once to a rival or something, and then they came up straightforward like, yeah, that was us.
No, they posted it on their site, and then later they were like, shit, guys, maybe that wasn't so funny. Yeah, maybe we better write something. But yeah, they put it on their site to get traffic to it. Now, I heard a thing on Twit this morning. Apparently, the way the writers at Gawker Media are paid is they get paid a base salary, but then they get paid based on the traffic they drive. So if more people read your articles that you write for Gawker Media, then you get more money. So it's definitely a traffic, move. They want to, they put that video of them turning TVs off on Gizmodo, and then people will come to see it. Now, just to show you how you go listen to our episode on being professional if you have any questions about this, and why Gizmodo is totally lame, even though the first geek instinct might be to think that they're cool
well, the
for
thing
pulling
is,
a prank.
I use this example a lot. I think it's a good example, but there are a lot of other examples. There's professionalism, and then there is unprofessionalism, and in between the two, there is a magic land called professionally unprofessional. I think Dave and Joel's Fast Karate are a good example of that, where it feels really like unprofessional by the seat of the pants, but at the same time, it's really well done and put together. And
they're probably like, what the fuck is I'm talking about?
But I've said this before, because they feel a lot less professional than they really are, but they don't feel that in a bad way. But Gizmodo definitely has not achieved that balance.
No, they haven't. They're definitely just unprofessional. I mean, and this isn't just like some Gizmodo writer we're talking about here.
If I was CES, I probably would have banned them.
Oh, they banned the guy who did it for life from CES.
Oh, I would have banned Gizmodo.
All of Gizmodo, yes. I would have also banned all of Gizmodo.
I would have banned all of Gizmodo for 1 year.
I would have banned all of Gawker Media forever.
Ooh, because then Gawker would have come down.
Well, there's no other people at Gawker who want to go to CES anyway. But
no, I mean they would have come down on Gizmodo.
Right, but this is the Gizmodo editor, Brian Lamb. This wasn't some writer. This was the editor of Gizmodo. So there's definitely this culture of unprofessional sort of loserishness going on at Gizmodo that's not good. And to show you just how unprofessional this is, let me read the comments from Dig. I'm going to read the Dig.
Oh, what are you going to Dig for?
Listen, this will show you how bad it is, how terrible it is. If the Dig comments are saying this, you know it's bad. You ready?
I'm ready.
Top comment on Dig. That's what happens when you act like a fucking douche. Some of that video was funny, but screwing over the guy who was trying to give a presentation was just plain fucked.
Wow.
And then the next one. Good, that's exactly what should have happened. CES is a place for journalists, not dim-witted pranksters screwing up everyone's presentations. Extremely low class on Gizmodo's part.
Yeah, coming out of Dig, it's kind of frightening to get something like that.
I mean, if Dig comments are calling you unprofessional and they're saying that what you did was a dick move and low class, you got to feel pretty bad. If it's like if 4chan was calling you low class. It's like, that's bad. But yeah, basically the thing that everyone's talking about now is like, oh, is this gonna make bloggers look bad and look unprofessional in general? And I'm like, no, I don't think so, because I think Engadget showed that bloggers are very professional and high quality. It just makes Gizmodo look like a bunch of losers, which they are.
Things of the day. So this video is pretty cool. I'd recommend you watch. It's one of those art films. It's definitely designed to be poignant and to make you think or feel something and be a little piece of art. But what I've linked to here is just a video of 100 people aged 1 to 100 in order striking a drum.
One time each. Well, not exactly one time.
Well, that one guy misses a bunch of times.
That other guy hits it a whole bunch.
And that one guy actually knew how to drum.
Yeah.
But
it's the same drum.
This is a really interesting video because you basically see the progression of human aging among a whole bunch of different people. And what I found the most fascinating was that pretty much people are, in general, pretty together with it up until about the 40s, 50s. And then it seems like half the people are really sad and really bleh, and half the people are super energetic. And once you get past like 70, the only people left are pretty awesome, generally energetic people, surprisingly. It's like if you're well enough to make it past a certain point, you're probably going to make it a whole lot longer than that.
Another thing I noticed is that, in the middle, pretty much the health and the vitality of people is a nice curve, as you would expect. But when you get to the deep end where people are really old, like there were some 90-year-olds who were looking better than some 70-year-olds in there, it's really like, hey, kind of mixes up.
Yeah, and the sad thing is once you hit 90 or so, it really drops off. And I'll admit that the way it ends is actually kind of touching and sad. And it is kind of sad how, I guess, the older people got after a certain point, the more confused they were as to what they're doing and what's going on in the room.
Yeah, some of them seemed happy though.
Oh yeah, there's one old guy. It was like 80 or something, 81 I think, but I don't remember which number. But there's this one old guy with white hair, and I think he was the most distinguished-looking gentleman I have ever seen. in my
that
life.
guy. That's a good guy.
Yeah, you'll know the guy when you see him. You'll think, "Wow, that's James Bond." If he were real and he were 80,
Yeah, that was a good guy. I liked him.
that guy was probably some duke or lord or something.
Who knows? Anyway, a lot of them were in the UK, the Albions. They
Albionites.
sounded like it, at least.
They were definitely Albionites.
Watch, they were
of
all
some kind.
Australian. We're all stupid.
I can't tell. I'm sorry.
Whatever.
I can tell the difference between a fake Albionic accent. I almost said accident, and I'm sure there's a joke there. And a fake Australian accent.
Well, a fake Albionic accent does sound
Oi,
like an
hey,
accident.
bloody hell!
Oh, never.
Bloody never!
All right.
God. Anyway,
So, on the show in the past, I have talked about the fake medicines and how they piss me off.
homeopathy. It's not real.
It's not real. And there's a lot of fake medicines that piss me off. And if, think about it, whether you, not even considering any specific fake medicine, imagine if there was a fake medicine and someone was selling it as if it was real. Isn't that like the worst thing ever? Now people who are sick and maybe possibly could be cured and helped by real medicine are now instead using fake medicine and dying because someone fooled them into doing so. It's pretty close to murder on the list of evil things, selling fake medicine. So fake medicine is bad, whether you particularly think any particular medicine is fake or not. Now, usually you hear people like me or James or Andy or some other non-science people talking about fake medicine.
Science people.
Science people, right? So, and you also hear fake medicine people talking about their own fake medicine. And you hear well-meaning but, deluded people who believe in fake medicine talking about how the fake medicine is so great. And it's pretty hard to actually get doctors or anyone who's, sort of someone you can trust a little bit more to talk about the fake medicine because they're too busy just doing medicine. It's the same reason it's hard to get like a lot of biologists to start, talking about evolution.
It's like when those crazy nut jobs come, they're like, yeah, I have a quantum perpetual motion machine, blah, blah, blah. And they say, yeah, and the quantum physicist won't take me seriously. They're afraid of me.
The quantum physicist is just ignoring you because he's so dumb.
He's doing quantum physics. He doesn't care about you. He already knows you're wrong and stupid, and he just assumes that people are smart enough to realize that.
And the problem is that us smart people who are not if you're a quantum physicist, you're smart enough to spend your time doing quantum physics and ignoring people who say they have perpetual motion machines, and it creates a predicament for people like us who are smart enough to know that perpetual motion machines are fake, but don't have the credentials to sort of convince people more easily.
I like how the way you phrase that and the kind of the pacing and the diction you used, I guess diction isn't the right word, but you get my point, was very much set up to equate us, smart people, with quantum physicists.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyway. So anyway, there's a blog that started semi-recently. It started on January 1st, 2008. It's a very new blog, and it's very, very awesome. This blog, you know who blogs on this blog?
Bloggers?
4 doctors.
Doctors in what?
Real doctors.
Because I have a doctorate from a couple of fake internet schools.
Okay, let me tell you the 4. I will give you the credentials. I was going to let you read the credentials of the 4 doctors on the site yourself.
Oh.
But I will read them to you.
Okay.
First doctor, Stephen Novella, academic clinical neurologist at Yale.
So he probably knows about the Kiki Booba.
Maybe. Doctor number 2, Wallace Sampson, graduate of UC Berkeley with MD from UCSF, a recovering hematologist oncologist. He's old. Harriet Hall, MD, known as the Skep Doc, is a retired family physician who writes about pseudoscience, has a BA and MD from University of Washington.
And the 4th one, Geist, MD.
Internship in the Air Force. Yes, the 4th, MD, guys, most dangerous doctor. No. The 4th one is David H. Gorski, MD, PhD. He is a surgical oncologist specializing in the breast cancer. And actually, I read his recent thing talking about breast cancer, Randy. But anyway, let me tell you some of the titles of some of the articles that are on this science blog. The first one is announcing the science-based medicine blog. Oh, by the way, the URL of this site is sciencebasedmedicine.org. All lowercase, no spaces, no hyphens, no nothing. Just sciencebasedmedicine.org. And we'll link to it, of course. All right. The plant versus pharmaceutical false dichotomy. Scrolling up. Homeopathy and evidence-based medicine. Back to the Future Part 1.
It really bothers me that even that in this day and age, you actually have to say the words evidence-based.
Yep.
Because there are people who think there's an alternative.
Well, it's really new. I mean, how long really have we had Western science-based medicine?
Oh, yes.
Not even 200 years. Not even.
My point, however, is that we've got it. We shouldn't. It's like we've already transcended making stuff up. We've already transcended just giving people stuff and not knowing if it
think
works.
About how long did it take? We had evolution. Not even as long, and it takes time for the ideas to get around.
It is kind of scary.
How long did it take for us to get rid of Earth is the center of the solar system?
Well, there are people, but
All right. So who am I? Here's another title. Who am I? Why am I here? That's great.
all right,
Mercury in vaccines as a cause of autism and autism spectrum disorders, a failed hypothesis.
That's one of my biggest pet peeve issues.
Can magnets heal? ? Do you hear there's actually a really sad story recently?
Let me guess. Someone had a disease and they used magnets.
No. This is you ready? You want to hear the sad story?
Someone
or not?
ate some neodymium magnets.
No, it's related to the autism, and vaccines.
Someone didn't get a vaccine.
No.
Oh.
It's even worse. You ready for this?
I don't know if I want to hear this.
Well, say if you want to or not.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, so there was a lady. She had a daughter who was autistic, right? Or I think it was a child who was autistic. I don't remember all the details, but I remember enough, the important part. She killed her own child.
Whoa.
Because she couldn't deal with the autism. She said she loved her kid, but she hated the autism, right? Why did she do it? She blamed the autism on herself for getting the kid vaccinated, and because she'd been convinced the vaccines is what caused it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think I used this as news a while ago, but I can't let everyone forget that the origin of the whole autism caused by vaccines bullshit was basically from a group of lawyers and doctors who colluded to make this happen in order to generate lawsuits to make a whole bunch of money.
Yeah, it does sound like a conspiracy theory the way Rim said it just now.
But at the same time...
So don't take Rim's word for it. Take the doctor's word for it. At sciencebasedmedicine.org, subscribe to this feed and read it. Every article they write. The newest one is on the nature of alternative medicine cancer cure testimonials. And it's really good because towards he talks about all the, why there are these, positive testimonials for these fake cancer cures. And he talks about people who have, had, and it's really interesting. It's stuff. It's pretty crazy. And then this one paragraph, because this guy, he's the guy who's the breast cancer surgical oncologist, who's the specialist in breast cancer. And this one paragraph, he just goes full on with the science, and it's just like, whoa! But there's no arguing against that. I mean,
full on with the science.
Not by me anyway.
I just full on with the science. Whoa!
Whoa! I could try to find that paragraph and read it, but it is way sciencey. Goddamn, is it sciencey?
So, it is a Monday night. What, Scott, are we going to talk about?
Okay. Well, all right. Well, the Mac World is tomorrow, right?
I do.
All right. And the Mac World is tomorrow. But last week at CES, Mac announced an upgrade to the Mac Pro. And the Mac Pro, if you don't know, is sort of the Mac Tower. They make the iMac is the desktop. The MacBook Pro and the MacBook, which are the laptops. And there's the Mac Pro.
The Mac Pro is I do 3D editing design in my house.
And up until last week, I had always, just the Mac Pro was not on my radar. I mean, I knew it existed, but I didn't care about it. I assumed maybe if I was a 3D person, a graphic designer, something like that, the Mac Pro would be great. For me, Scott Rubin, Mac Pro, pretty useless. I can ignore that, right? However, they announced that Mac Pro last week, so I saw the news about it, and I took a look at it, and suddenly my mind started to shift. I don't know, and I wrote a whole big thing on my blog about why. I've been talking about why on, Friday Night Party Line and a whole bunch of other places, so I'm not going to go into it. But the one key factor in the reason that the Mac Pro was suddenly a consideration and not just a complete ignoring was that VMware Fusion existed. And supposedly, VMware Fusion would have allowed me to run, I guess it does, allow me to run Windows and Linux and all that business alongside OS X without rebooting. So in my mind, theoretically, if the VMware Fusion worked as advertised, which it doesn't, because you can't play Portal on it, right? But if it worked as advertised, which it may one day do, I could play my Steam games, run my Linux to do my real work, and run Mac OS, and sync my iPod to iTunes, and use Adium, and use Firefox.
Oh man, Adium. That alone is like the main reason I want to get a Mac laptop.
Yeah, Adium is like 1,000 times better than any IM client for anything. But anyway, yeah, so I could have done all that on one machine without having to reboot ever. And I could have still had the option of rebooting in case the VMware Fusion didn't work to Windows, to play a game or something. So the Mac Pro, because of the VMware Fusion, was possibly able to do those things, and it was really appealing to me. Now, you might be like, hey, how does the VMware Fusion do that? Well, and that is the topic of tonight's show. And not just VMware, but virtualization in general.
Now, a lot of people probably don't fully understand what things like VMware or virtualization do, and a lot of what I want to talk about tonight is not so much how it works, because you probably don't care.
But the difference.
But the difference, and then mostly why this is a big deal, and why this is important, and why
and
this
what
is the
you
future.
use it for.
Not just you, but corporations and large entities have a very, very big piece of this pie.
Yep.
As I'll get to.
And there are a lot of ancillary issues related to virtualization, such as virtualization and security, and virtualization and efficiency and performance, and we're not going to talk about those. But let me start out. I want to talk about the difference between a virtual machine, an emulator, and Wine, because Wine is neither.
Wine is not an emulator.
Nor is it a virtual machine.
Wine is an API. Well, anyway.
Yes. So let's talk about what Wine is first, just quickly, right? What Wine is
something that will never work on any program you want it to work on, but it works just fine on anything you don't care about.
It actually works really well now. Better than it ever has.
Yeah, it does. I'll say this before we get going. If you have used Wine before and you gave up because it sucked, it did suck, and it did suck. I'm not going to pretend it didn't suck. It sucks so much less now.
I think
than it
a lot
used
of
to.
people, just on a side note, God, tangents ahoy, right? Is that a lot of people, they use Linux at some point, or they use a Linux application at some point, and it's a bad experience, and I can see why in many cases. And then they assume that experience hasn't changed. The experience of Linux things changes daily. It's open source. There's people developing it constantly. So there's new versions of Wine every week, and there's drastic improvements every week. So you can't. That's part of the thing that makes Linux great in general and open source great, is that even if you had a bad experience with it, you had to come back and try it again. It's better. It keeps getting better constantly. Anyway, so Wine. What is Wine? Wine is, if you want to run, you have a Windows application, you want to run it in Linux, right? So how do you get it to run? Not easily. You need to, basically.
Now, well, why doesn't it work? I mean, it's a x86. We've talked about that before. It's the same hardware.
Yep. All the x86 instructions know how to talk to your Pentium chip or whatever, your Intel chip or your AMD chip. The problem is,
very likely, you wrote a program that uses some of the shit that Windows does for you. So
yeah,
result,
it may be in the program they wrote, they use the code that makes the Windows printing dialog show up, or the Windows file open dialog show up.
Or I just want to pop up a window and then I want to use like the Windows graphic thing. Well, you access those via an API, and you know what? Windows and Linux do not have the same APIs.
No, it's using all sorts of libraries, which are basically a bunch of tools. So you don't have to, I don't have to, when I write a program that makes a bunch of windows open up, I don't have to write code to describe how windows work anymore. I just say new window. And Windows already has the code to make Windows show up. But Linux has code to make Windows show up, but that's a different code for making Linux windows. So what they do is Wine is they basically from scratch wrote libraries that are basically functionally equivalent to the Windows libraries, but they work in Linux and other operating systems. So a Windows program, when it would normally say, hey, Windows, open up a window, Wine says, he wants to open up a window. Well, I have a library that knows how to do that. And it basically is just replacing all those libraries, right? It's not an emulator. It's not a virtual machine.
It works okay. There's performance hits, whatever, but we're not talking about that any further.
Yeah, it's just a different set of libraries that were made from scratch that are trying to copy the Windows libraries so that Windows applications work. Okay, so an emulator. What is an emulator?
Well, an emulator, very simply.
Let's see if Rim gets this right.
All it does is, like, say here's a good example that you can all understand. I got ROMs, right?
Yep.
So let's say I used to have a Nintendo Entertainment System, which is a piece of hardware. And I used to play games on that, which were also little pieces of hardware, little chips. And I don't have my Nintendo anymore, but I still want to play these games. Well, I download an emulator, like Nesticle, which basically recreates the stuff that the hardware did. And then I download a ROM, which is basically an image of the hardware in the cartridge. And I combine the two, and it pretends to be a Nintendo, pretending to run that cartridge, and I get to play the same game that I played on my NES back in the day.
Yep. Basically, what it does is it's sort of like most emulators, at least, are translators. You know, you want to run this Nintendo ROM, right? So you need something to translate from Nintendo ROM language into personal computer language, right? And the emulator will just sort of do that. You know, it looks at what the Nintendo cartridge wants to do, it translates that into computer speak, and it does it. And then your computer understands it, and then it goes back and it tells the NES ROM. So it's basically translating between two different languages. That's why it allows you to run software, say, for a way different kind of computer on a way other different kind of computer. It's that's why you were able to run PlayStation 1 games on the Dreamcast with Bleem, stuff like that. It's a translator. Now, virtual machine. Virtual machine is what we're talking about today. Virtual machine is exactly what it sounds like. It's a fake machine. I mean, your computer's a machine, right?
Yeah, it's just, binary bits running around in a processor being added to each other a whole bunch of times.
Now, what if I wanted to make a fake machine? How do I do that? With cardboard? Styrofoam?
Yes, that is exactly what virtual machines are. They're little pieces of cardboard that you stick in your CD-ROM drive.
Oh, then why are they useful? No, a virtual machine is basically, instead of just making a translator from, one kind of computer to another or redoing some libraries, what they do is they write a bunch of code, they make a program, and the program itself does the same thing the machine would do. So you look at an Intel chip, right? And an x86 processor does certain things. It takes x86 assembly instructions and it processes it takes those instructions, it does what those instructions are supposed to do, and then it outputs, right? I could write a piece of software, not a chip. I could write a piece of software in code that can take x86 assembly instructions, figure out what they do, calculate what the output would be based on that input, and then output that output. You can recreate a machine. You can make in software a program that does the same thing the actual chip does. I write a program in C, and that program does exactly the same thing that a 486 does. I effectively have a 486. If I go and get a program that will run on a 486, I can just give that program to the piece of software I wrote that is a 486, and it'll run. So VMware and all these other virtual machine things, VMware just being a very popular one. There's also Parallels and I guess Bots and a whole bunch of other ones.
Well, you can use Plex 86.
Oh, yeah, there's another one. There's a whole bunch of these things, right? And what they do is I have a big computer and I run a virtual machine. And that virtual machine basically makes a computer on that computer. It runs a program, and that program itself is effectively a computer.
All right, let's cut to the chase now, because I'm sure people are getting real bored real quick.
They are.
All that means is I can have a bunch of windows on my computer that each one of them is running a whole operating system.
Yep.
And I actually do this at work a lot. In my office at work, on my computer, I have VMware Workstation. And in that VMware Workstation, I have like 4 different Ubuntu servers, each one running different stuff. And whenever I want to do development or play with stuff or test anything, I do it there. That way, I have this whole server environment that I can test on, do whatever I want. If I screw it up, I just reload it from the default. If I want to, say I want to make a cluster, I make one, then I clone it 4 times, open all 4, change the names, connect them all to each other.
Yep. You basically, with only one physical computer, can have as many computers that are effectively more. It's like having a whole bunch of computers, except you only have one, and you can have as many as you can get until you run out of memory or CPU. And that's why the Mac Pro was so appealing, because it would have 8 cores, and I'd probably get 4 gigs of RAM, thus allowing me to have plenty of Linux and Windows virtual machines and thus the fact that it was Mac OS X wouldn't bog me down. So, what are virtual machines useful for?
Well, for the industry side of it, one big thing that we're using them for a lot, and I've done this at other jobs, is basically, say you got a whole bunch of old servers or old software that only runs on like OS 2 or something.
You gotta keep an old shitty computer around that's running OS 2 that could break at any minute because it's an old shitty computer.
And you can't install OS 2 on a new computer. It doesn't work.
That's not gonna work.
So what if I build one really, really powerful server running Linux? And on that Linux, I run 100 virtual machines. Each one of them is an old OS 2, and each one of them is running one of those old applications from back in the day.
Yep, I don't need to keep around my old shitty computers that could break down at any minute and probably use too much electricity and have parts that can't be fixed or replaced. I can have a fancy new computer, but all my old shitty software can run on these fake OS 2s. And the software doesn't know any better because, as far as it's concerned, there's just a program that is the same thing as the machine, that old shitty machine we threw out. But that program is new and fancy and updated, so it's okay.
Yep. Now, beyond that, for system administration, if you're virtualizing things, downtime isn't an issue. You want to test something, you want to test a change, you just clone your virtual machine in the current state, run it in a NAT, like just run it, make your change, see if it works, and if it works, just do the same thing to your working server.
Yeah, I mean, not only do you have something that effectively works the exact same way as a real machine, but it's not a real machine, but it has all the advantages of being a piece of software. You can copy it, you can pass it around, you can muck with it, you can pause it, you can start it, you can rewind it, you can fast forward it.
I could make a machine to test something and then send it to Scott so he can test the thing I made.
Yeah, and it'd be exactly the same thing because we're using the same fake machine even though our real machines are different. Another thing, like our hosting, here's a good example. Our hosting is Linux, right? But it runs on user mode Linux. User mode Linux is a little different from virtual machine, but it's pretty close. It's effectively the same as far as you people are concerned. And what it is, user mode Linux is where you have a Linux kernel running on a computer. And then you load a bunch of other Linux kernels. So it splits up one big computer into a bunch of little computers. So as far as I'm concerned, right, sitting in my house, our hosting, our web hosting, is on a dedicated Linux server. It's as if I could not tell the difference if I didn't between what we have and if I had my very own Linux computer with its own CPU and its own RAM and its own everything. But I don't. There's one big server with a bunch of Linuxes on it. But I just log into some machine as, me, and I log into it normally, and I have full control over this machine. It's just not a real machine. It's a part of a bigger machine, just running another copy of Linux within a copy of Linux.
Now, the ramifications for you, small-time developer, hobbyist, whatever, is say you want to play around with a bunch of different Linuxes. Well, just make virtual machines and play all you want. You don't even have to reboot.
Yeah.
And if you mess something up, oh well. If you need to look up documentation because your Gen 2 Stage 1 isn't working so well, your Gen 2 Stage 1 is in a window and you've got Firefox open next to it.
Yep. I mean, you can, you don't have to go rebooting. You don't have to mess with your partitions or anything. If you want to, you say you want to make a Linux, right? So you make a 10 gigabyte file, you install the Linux onto that 10 gigabyte file, right? If you don't like it, you can delete the file. And you're all good. The file won't even grow to be 10 gigs unless you fill the 10 gigs. And you can have, if you need to use like a Windows application and you're running OS X, the VMware Fusion, you have Windows running inside of a window. You'll have your Apple dock and then there'll be a window. And in that window will be Microsoft Windows. And as far as that Windows is concerned, it's running on a real computer all on its own. It has no idea.
Now,
it doesn't know that Mac OS X is out there.
The holy grail of all this that we have not achieved yet is to the point where I can run whatever operating system I want, or even maybe a base generic operating system that doesn't do anything by itself and only hosts virtual machines. And then I run whatever operating systems I want for whatever applications I want, and thus it doesn't matter what kind of computer I have, doesn't matter what operating system I have, I can do whatever I want without rebooting.
Yeah, we're pretty close to that, but
the problem is Steam really doesn't work in a virtual machine worth a damn.
Yeah, because here's the problem, right? When you make a virtual machine, right? Basically, what you're doing is you're not just doing the CPU, you're doing the sound card and the video card, and they're writing a piece of software. And when the Windows that runs in the virtual machine says draw a polygon on the screen, they write not just, the Windows uses its own driver, right? But that driver isn't, sending its instructions to your actual video card. It's sending instructions to this program that's pretending to be a video card. So unless that program pretending to be a video card is as good as an NVIDIA video card, it's going to be really hard to play a game on it. So until, it's getting better. I mean, they're at the point where some 3D stuff is kind of working and such, but not really. And it's going to take a while for the program that is pretending to be a video card to be as good as an actual video card. And when you get to that point, then 3D stuff will really start to kick ass.
Now, probably the biggest thing, but we've already gone on a long time, so I think we'll talk about this in a separate show, because there's a whole world I can talk about what this is and why it's important, whatever. But for now, I would recommend that anyone out there who doesn't know about this already, go download VMware Player, because it's free.
Yep.
Completely free. And then just search on the VMware site for virtual appliances and look at what they are. Download any that look interesting, run them, and play with them.
Yeah, there are also how-to guides as to how to, make your own virtual appliances with a text editor and QEMU and a Linux CD. And you don't even need to burn the CDs. You just need to download ISOs of Linux distributions. You could play with every Linux distribution in the universe without ever actually having to format your hard drive or anything. You can just fool around with all of them and see what they do and see what they're like.
And if you're interested, someday in the future, we could probably talk about virtual appliances themselves and the many myriad of uses that they have.
Yep. Now, the one thing I do want to say, one very good use of a virtual machine is if you're a web developer, right? You're making web pages, and you want to make sure those web pages look good no matter what browser, no matter what operating system, right? Well, it's kind of hard to install IE6 and 7 on the same machine, even though it's kind of possible. It's not easy, right? And it's not perfect. And you can, what if you need to test Safari on Mac, and then they have Safari for Windows now, and they have Opera on Windows, Mac, and Linux, and, you have Conqueror and KDE, and you have different Firefox versions, and you don't want to get them all confused. Well, just make a bunch of virtual machines and each one has a different set of browsers that don't conflict with each other, and then you can test your website in all these different browsers. But you're really only sitting at one computer. You have to have a bunch of computers or anything like that. You just one computer. And you can test all these browsers and all these different operating systems to see how stuff works. Also, if you're just programming a program, let's say I want to write a word processor program, and I want that word processor program to work on every operating system. And I know I've coded it right for every operating system, but I got to test it. Well, instead of having a computer, 5 computers, I can just use one. And that is the amazingness that is the virtual machine.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.